He thought he knew how to read fire, until the woman he loved for 15 years burned his entire world down.
You know, being a fire captain for the Denver Fire Department for 12 years teaches you a lot about heat. You learn how to read a building. You learn when the structure is about to give way, when the oxygen is being sucked out of a room, and exactly how long you have before a flashover turns everything to ash. I thought I was an expert at handling emergencies. I thought I knew how to stay calm under the most brutal pressure, but nothing, no training, no fire, no life or death rescue, prepared me for the moment. I realized my own home was the one burning down, and the person holding the match, the woman I'd loved for 15 years. My name is Warren Donaghue. I'm 47 years old. Jessica and I met when she was 22 and I was 32. I remember the way she looked back then, vibrant, a marketing grad with the world in her eyes. She used to tell me she loved dating a real man, someone steady, someone who knew how to protect people. I took that to heart. I built us a life in Lakewood, a perfect 4-bedroom house with mountain views and a garage where I'd spend my weekends restoring a vintage Camaro. We had a son, Tyler, who's 16 now. For a long time, I thought I had it all. But looking back, I realized I was ignoring the smell of smoke for months. It started about a year ago. Tyler turned 16, started driving, and suddenly Jessica was talking about feeling lost. She'd given up her career to be a mom, and now that her son didn't need her every second, she was looking for something else. She rejoined Facebook. At first, it was harmless, catching up with college friends. But then, she started laughing at her phone in a way that made my stomach twist. It wasn't the "I'm looking at a funny cat" video laugh. It was the "I'm sharing a secret" laugh. I didn't say a word. I just watched. Then came the fitness transformation. Jessica had never set foot in a gym in a decade. Suddenly, she was there 5 times a week. She lost 20 pounds, bought a wardrobe that looked like it belonged to someone Tyler's age, and started wearing makeup just to go to the grocery store. I just want to feel good about myself. Warren, she'd say, when I caught her admiring her reflection. Is that so wrong? No, I'd tell her. You look great. But the woman who used to curl up next to me to watch movies was gone. In her place was a stranger who was always restless, always finding reasons to be somewhere else. The tipping point was a Tuesday night. I'd just finished a brutal 24-hour shift. We'd fought a warehouse fire for 6 hours straight. I was bone-tired, smelling of soot and sweat, wanting nothing more than to feel my wife's arms around me. But when I walked in, Jessica was at the vanity, applying a shade of red lipstick I'd never seen before. Where are you headed? I asked, my voice raspy from the smoke. Girls' night with Sarah and Michelle, she said, not even looking at me. I told you about it. She hadn't. I just stood there, watching her grab her purse and walk out without even a goodbye kiss. As the door clicked shut, I stood in the silence of my kitchen and felt that familiar instinct, the one that tells you the roof is about to collapse. I just didn't know yet how much of my life was about to be buried in the rubble. Wednesday morning, Jessica was sleeping in, a new routine of hers. I decided to do something nice. Or maybe I was just looking for answers. I went out to clean her car. I was vacuuming the passenger seat, working the nozzle into the cracks, when I felt something stiff. I pulled it out, a business card, Marcus Rivera, personal trainer, on the back, in blue ink, a handwritten note. Call me anytime. My blood turned to ice. Jessica had never mentioned a personal trainer. We'd talked about her classes, but never a one-on-one. I stared at the card in the bright Lakewood sun. Marcus Rivera. The name felt like a ghost from a past I'd almost forgotten. Then it clicked. Senior year, Jessica's college ex-boyfriend. The one she'd dated right before me. The toxic one she'd told me she was glad to be rid of. Warren. What are you doing out there? Jessica was at the kitchen window, her hair messy, wearing one of my old fire department t-shirts. I felt a surge of nausea. I slipped the card into my pocket. Just cleaning your car, babe. It was getting pretty messy. I called back. I walked inside. She was making coffee, looking radiant, even in the morning. I looked at her and wondered how many of our routine conversations were now just cover stories. I pulled a few old receipts and a stray lipstick tube from my other pocket. Distractions. Found some stuff in the cushions, I said, tossing the lipstick on the counter. This your new shade? Oh, Sarah recommended it, she said, her eyes flitting away. Said it would look good on me. Sarah. The mythical Sarah. Sarah was the architect of the new clothes, the new hair, the late nights. I was starting to wonder if Sarah even existed. That afternoon, she left for another appointment. She left her phone charging on the counter. I'd never snooped in 15 years. I believed in trust. But trust is a luxury you can't afford when you're standing in a room full of gasoline. I picked it up, no passcode. She was either arrogant or thought I was too stupid to check. I scrolled. Most of it was normal. Tyler, her sister, work. Then I found it. A contact listed simply as M followed by a fire emoji. The messages weren't just flirty. They were a roadmap of betrayal. Can't wait to see you tonight. It's been too long. Same here. Warren will be at the station late, so we'll have plenty of time. I read that last line over and over. She wasn't just cheating. She was using my job, my career, where I literally put my life on the line for our community, as her scheduling tool. Every time I was out protecting someone else's home, she was inviting a ghost into ours. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone. I just copied Marcus Rivera's number into my own phone. I sat in the garage with a beer, staring at those 10 digits. I thought about the 15 years we'd spent together, the vacations, Tyler's first steps. All of it felt like a simulation now. I let her dig her own grave. I just didn't realize yet how deep she was willing to go. At 6 a.m. the next morning, I made the call. I was sitting in my truck, the engine idling, the cold mountain air fogging the windshield. Marcus Rivera, personal training, a smooth, athletic voice answered. This is Warren Donaghue, I said. I believe you know my wife, Jessica. There was a silence so long I thought the call had dropped. Then, now I see. Do you? I asked, my voice like a grinding stone. Because I'm trying to figure out what you see when you look at a married woman with a teenage son and a husband who risks his life every day. Does that turn you on, Marcus? Or are you just that pathetic? Look, man, I didn't know she was married at first, he stammered. You knew eventually, and you kept going. You used my shift schedule. You sat in my house. My hands were white on the steering wheel. This ends today. If I see your name on her phone, if I find a trace of you in her life, we're going to have a different kind of conversation. The kind that happens face to face. Do you understand? I hung up before he could answer. I felt a hollow, cold power. But when Jessica woke up, I could tell he'd already messaged her. She was jumpy. She was checking her phone every 30 seconds, her thumb hovering over the screen. No messages were coming through. By that evening, she was a caged animal. She paced the kitchen, her eyes darting to the window. Everything okay? I asked over dinner. Fine. Why? She snapped. You seem anxious. Just work stuff. Warren, you wouldn't get it. 3 days later, the work stuff exploded. I was in my home office when she burst in, her face a mask of fury. You called him, didn't you? She shrieked. Marcus told me some jealous husband threatened him. That was you. I leaned back in my chair. I didn't raise my voice. I had a conversation with your personal trainer, yes. I thought he should know. His client's husband wasn't as oblivious as he thought. You had no right. Marcus is just a friend. Friends don't text about having plenty of time while the husband is at the firehouse. Jessica, the color drained from her face. She stumbled back. You went through my phone. I did what I had to do to see the fire you were starting in our basement. I said. She stared at me, her chest heaving. Then the guilt turned into something uglier. Defiance. You know what, Warren? You're right. Marcus isn't just a friend. And maybe if you paid half as much attention to your wife as you do to your precious fire department, you'd have realized that months ago. The classic move. Shift the blame. Make the victim the villain. So, it's my fault? I asked quietly. My 12-hour shifts, my overtime to pay for your Camaro and Tyler's club sports. That's why you're sleeping with an ex-boyfriend? Marcus sees me, she yelled. He listens. He makes me feel alive again. I'm not just some invisible housewife to him. Marcus sees an opportunity, I countered. He's a predator. Jessica. He saw a woman who was bored and a husband who was busy, and he exploited it. He doesn't love you. He loves the win. Maybe I should go find out for myself then, she challenged. She was waiting for me to break. She wanted me to beg. She wanted me to fall to my knees and say, I'll change. Please stay. I just looked at her. I'd seen people lose everything in fires. Their photos, their memories, their pets. I knew what loss looked like. Go ahead, I said, my voice steady. But understand this. If you walk out that door to go to him, you are walking out of this life forever. No second chances. No, we can work on it. Yeah. You choose him, you lose me. She stared at me, shocked. I didn't blink. I didn't say a word. I just waited. Fine, she spat. Maybe it's time I did something for me. She turned and walked out. An hour later, her car left the driveway. I sat in the dark of my office and realized the flashover had happened. The structure was gone. Now, it was just about salvage. 6 o'clock on a Friday, Jessica returned to the house, but not to stay. She was dressed in a black cocktail dress, expensive, low cut, something I'd never seen. Her hair was done up. She looked like she was heading to a premiere. I was in the kitchen, eating a sandwich alone. I'm going out, she announced, checking her lipstick in the microwave reflection. Where? I asked. Marcus is having a party at his place. His gym friends will be there. I thought it was time I actually met them. She turned to me, her chin held high. She was baiting me. She wanted a fight. She wanted me to be the controlling husband so she could justify what she was about to do. So, you're choosing him, I said. I'm choosing to have some fun, Warren. You made it clear you don't want me around him, so I stopped caring what you want. I stood up. I walked over to the counter and looked her in the eye. Jessica, listen to me carefully. If you walk out that door and go to that party, we are done. Not separated. Done. I will file for divorce tomorrow. I will pack your things tonight. She laughed. A cold, sharp sound. You wouldn't. You're too steady for that. You need me to run this house. Try me, I said. Don't wait up. Warren, this party might run very late. The door slammed. I stood there for a long time, listening to the silence. My wife was heading to her lover's house out of pure spite. She thought she was the one in control. I didn't waste a second. I went upstairs to our master bedroom. I pulled her suitcases out of the top of the closet. I didn't throw things. I didn't rip them. I packed them with the same methodical precision I used to coil a fire hose. I packed the new lingerie she'd bought but never wore for me. I packed the dresses she'd bought for her secret dates. I packed her expensive cosmetics. As I went through her drawers, I found more embers of her betrayal. Hotel keycards, restaurant receipts for places we'd never been, a jewelry box hidden behind her shoes containing a diamond necklace I'd never seen, a gift from Marcus. No doubt, I didn't feel sadness. I felt a cold, surgical detachment. I packed it all. By midnight, 4 large suitcases were sitting by the front door. I went through the house. I took down every wedding photo. I took down the pictures of us at the department gala. I put them in a box in the garage. I wanted her to walk into a house that didn't recognize her. I called Mrs. Henderson, our neighbor. Tyler was staying overnight at his best friend's house for a gaming marathon. I made sure he was staying put. I didn't want him to see this. Then, I sat in my recliner in the dark living room. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't look at my phone. I just sat there, watching the front door, waiting for the smoke to clear. She probably thought I was upstairs, crying into a pillow. She probably thought she'd come home and find a broken man she could manipulate back into silence. I just smiled. She had no idea what was coming. I let her dig her own grave. And at 3:42 a.m., I heard her key in the lock. The deadbolt turned. The door creaked open. Jessica stepped into the hallway, trying to be quiet. She was disheveled. Her makeup was smudged. Her hair was a mess. And she smelled like cheap gin and Marcus's sandalwood cologne. She reached for the light switch. Click. She saw the suitcases first. 4 of them, lined up like soldiers. Then, she saw the empty walls where our memories used to hang. Finally, She saw me, sitting in the recliner, perfectly still. Warren. Her voice was small, shaky. Warren, what is this? I stood up slowly. Those are your things. Jessica, I thought I'd save you the trouble of packing tomorrow. She stared at the suitcases, then at me. You can't be serious. It was just a party. Warren! We were just hanging out. At 3:42 in the morning? With your hair like that? And your dress wrinkled? I walked toward her, stopping just outside her personal space. You spend the night at your ex-boyfriend's house, after I told you it would be the end of us. You made your choice. Jessica, I'm just enforcing the consequences. Nothing happened, she shrieked, the desperation finally setting in. I just fell asleep on his couch. I swear. The lies don't work anymore, I said, my voice calm and cold. You chose to betray our vows. You chose to spend your time with a man who has zero respect for your family, and you did it to hurt me. Well, mission accomplished. It hurt. But now, it's over. I picked up the first 2 suitcases and set them on the front porch. What are you doing? Where am I supposed to go? I'm sure Marcus has a couch for you, I said. Or maybe Sarah? Since she's been so supportive of your new lifestyle. Warren, please! Think about Tyler, she sobbed, grabbing my arm. I looked down at her hand, then back at her face. I am thinking about Tyler. I'm thinking about the example I want to set for him. I'm thinking about whether I want him to grow up thinking it's okay for a man to let himself be treated like garbage by the woman who's supposed to love him. I picked up the other 2 suitcases and set them outside. You're throwing me out after 15 years? She gasped. No, I said, you threw yourself out the second you decided Marcus was worth more than our marriage. I'm just making it official. I stepped back and held the door. The cool night air rushed in, clearing the scent of her perfume from the hallway. Warren, don't do this. We can talk in the morning. There is no we in the morning. Jessica, there's just the divorce papers my lawyer is drafting at 9 a.m. She looked at me, searching for the steady Warren who always gave in. She didn't find him. She saw a fire captain who was finally letting a condemned building burn. She walked onto the porch, her heels clicking against the concrete. She looked small and lost in the moonlight. This isn't over, she whispered. Yes, I said. It is. I closed the door. I turned the deadbolt. I watched through the window as she stood there for 10 minutes, probably waiting for me to open the door and beg her to come back. She eventually picked up her bags and walked toward her car. As her taillights disappeared, I felt a weight lift off my chest that I hadn't even realized I was carrying. The house was empty. The walls were bare, but for the first time in a year, I could finally breathe. The next morning, the silence was deafening. I made coffee, just for one. I sat at the table and realized I had to face the hardest part of this entire disaster. Tyler. He came home at 10 a.m., full of stories about the gaming marathon. He walked into the kitchen, saw me, and then saw the empty walls. Dad? Where's Mom? And why are the pictures gone? I took a breath. This was the rescue I didn't want to make. Sit down, son. We need to talk. I didn't tell him every ugly detail. I didn't tell him about the hotel cards or the sandalwood cologne. I just told him that Mom and I had been having problems, and she'd made some choices that meant she couldn't live here anymore. Tyler is a smart kid. He'd seen her changes. He'd seen the gym, the phone, the late nights. He just nodded, his face pale. Is it because of that gym guy? He asked quietly. I didn't lie to him. Yes, Tyler. Partly. He didn't cry. He just looked at his lap. I figured she's been different. The next few days were a blur. Jessica sent a barrage of texts. This is insane. Think about our son. You're being a monster. I ignored them all. I was focused on Tyler. I was focused on my shifts. On Saturday, I was in the garage, working on the Camaro. A silver BMW pulled into the driveway. A man I'd never seen got out of the driver's side. He was tall, well-dressed, maybe in his mid-30s. Then, Jessica got out of the passenger side. She looked exhausted, stressed. The glow was gone. Warren, we need to talk, she said, approaching the garage. I didn't stop working on the engine. No, we don't. This is Derek, she said. gesturing to the man. He's been helping me through this. I finally looked up. I studied Derek. He looked like a guy who had realized he'd stepped into a minefield. He was looking at his feet, shifting uncomfortably. Derek, I said, nodding. I'm Warren, the husband. Derek's face went crimson. Look, man, I'm just giving her a lift. I didn't know the whole story. They never do, I muttered. I looked at Jessica. Why are you here? I want to see Tyler, she said. Then call him. Make an appointment. But you're not coming in this house. This is my house, too, she yelled. Actually, the temporary orders my lawyer filed on Monday say otherwise. I replied, wiping my hands on a shop rag. You have a right to your personal property, which is already gone. Anything else goes through the court. Derek, let's go, she spat, turning back to the car. Jess, maybe we should just... Derek started. Jess? I laughed. Already a new name for the new life? That was fast. I watched them drive away. I felt a strange sense of pity for Derek. He was just the next guy in her cycle of needing validation. He was the bridge she was using to get over the wreckage she'd caused. I let her dig her own grave. She was trading a 15-year marriage for a guy who was already embarrassed to be seen with her in her own driveway. I went back to my Camaro. It was a 1969 SES Sim. It was broken. It was messy. And it was going to take a lot of work. But unlike my marriage, this was actually worth fixing. 6 months later, life had settled into a new rhythm. Tyler was doing well. He'd started therapy, and he was focusing on his college applications. We were closer than we'd ever been. Jessica was living in a small apartment, cycling through Derek's and Marcus's. Her life a constant whirlwind of drama that I no longer had to deal with. I was working a late shift at the station when Captain Rodriguez told me there was a woman at the front desk. Says her name is Sarah Martinez. Says it's important. My heart skipped. The Sarah? The alibi. I walked out. She was in her early 30s, dressed in scrubs. She had kind eyes, but she looked nervous. Mr. Donaghue? I'm Sarah. I used to be friends with Jessica. We sat in the break room. I expected another defense of Jessica. What I got was a confession. I found out recently that Jessica was using my name to lie to you, Sarah said, her voice shaking. She told you we were at the gym, or out for drinks. Warren, I haven't seen Jessica in over a year. We had a falling out because I caught her lying to me about something. I had no idea she was using me as a cover for an affair. I sat there, stunned. She told me you were her best friend. Until I realized who she really was. Sarah looked at me with genuine sympathy. I found out what happened from a mutual friend. I felt sick. I wanted you to know that I had no part in it. I would never help someone betray their husband like that. Sarah was real. She was honest. She was everything Jessica had pretended to be. We ended up talking for an hour. She'd been through a divorce herself. Her husband had a gambling addiction that had wiped them out. She knew what it was like to have the rug pulled out from under you. When she stood up to leave, she handed me her card. If you ever want to grab coffee with a real Sarah, I'd like that. 3 weeks later, I called her. Our first date lasted 4 hours. We didn't talk about Jessica. We talked about our kids, our jobs, our lives. Sarah was a nurse at the hospital downtown. She was grounded. She was steady. When I introduced her to Tyler a month later, I was nervous. He'd been through so much. After dinner, Sarah left. Tyler looked at me. She's normal, Dad. Normal? I asked. Yeah, like actually normal? Not like Mom got, crazy. I felt a massive weight lift. I started realizing that the fire that destroyed my marriage hadn't just left ash. It had cleared the ground for something better. Jessica had thrown away a good life for a thrill. And in doing so, she'd freed me to find a life that was actually built on solid ground. I didn't say a word to Jessica about Sarah. I just lived my life. I let her continue her search for excitement while I found something much more valuable. Peace. 1 year later, Tyler's high school graduation. The stadium was packed, the air filled with the scent of sunscreen and excitement. I was sitting in the front row with Sarah. We'd been living together for 3 months, and it was the easiest, most honest relationship I'd ever had. Jessica was there, too. She was sitting several rows back, alone. She looked older, The transformation had faded. The gym-honed body was still there, but her face was etched with the kind of lines that come from constant stress and regret. After the ceremony, Tyler found us. He hugged me. Then he hugged Sarah. "Thanks for being here, guys," he said. Jessica approached us a moment later. She looked at Sarah, then at me. There was no defiance left, just a hollow, sad expression. "Warren, could we talk for a minute?" Sarah gave my hand a squeeze and walked toward the car with Tyler to give us space. "You look happy." "Warren," Jessica said. I said, "Truly, I owe you an apology, a real one." Her eyes filled with tears. But for the first time, they weren't manipulative. They were heavy. I destroyed everything because I was scared of getting older. I thought Marcus would make me feel young again, but all he did was make me feel cheap. I looked at her. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel the need for revenge. Her life was the revenge. "I appreciate you saying that, Jessica," I said, "but it doesn't change the past. I know Tyler's going to CSU in the fall. He told me you raised a good son, Warren." "We both did," I said, before the smoke got too thick. She nodded, wiped her eyes, and walked away. I watched her go and realized that I didn't hate her anymore. I just felt sorry for her. She had traded a captain for a personal trainer and a home for a suitcase. I walked back to my Camaro. Sarah was waiting there, leaning against the door. "You okay?" she asked. "Never better," I said. Tyler graduated with honors. He's headed to Fort Collins in August to study engineering. My Camaro is finished. It's a cherry red masterpiece that turns heads every time I take it out. And the firehouse? I'm being promoted to battalion chief next month. Jessica is still in that apartment. Last I heard, she's dating another Derek, still trying to find that spark that she thought was missing from her marriage. She doesn't realize that the spark was never the problem. The foundation was, I let her dig her own grave. And in doing so, I built a life I actually wanted to live. Sometimes, you have to let a building burn to the ground so you can build something that actually lasts. My name is Warren Donaghue, and for the first time in my life, I'm not just handling emergencies. I'm living, and the view from here, it's better than any mountain vista.